Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this.
It's all about the high pressure, and that's what's happening. This dome of warm air encompassing the eastern U.S., and this is a blocking pattern that we have set up. So this has been sticking around. The heat builds under this high pressure. High pressure is sinking air, and as that heat, as that sticks around, that heat just continues to build over the next several days. So look at these temperatures. We're going to be in the mid-70s in KC, lower 80s in Atlanta, Chicago, upper 70s for today. Take a look at these temperatures as we take a closer look at the Northeast. They're 90 in Philly, upper 80s in DC. So it's really getting toasty out there. Boston, you're still nice and mild in the lower 70s though. So for a place like Philly, your average first day that you actually hit 90 degrees is May 23rd. The hottest that you've been so far is 87 degrees. So we're not that far off from May 23rd. So if we do hit that 90-degree temperature today, that would be just a tad bit early. So 5 to 20 degrees above average as we move through this weekend. So for a place like, say, Charlotte, you're normally in the lower 80s. So you're going to see those temperatures a bit above average. For a place like, say, Detroit, you should be in the lower 70s. Instead, it's going to be more like the upper 80s for you as we head into early next week. So we're really seeing those toasty temperatures. And Louisville up into Pittsburgh, upper 80s. Memphis, upper 80s for you, where you should be in the lower 80s. So that's not crazy above average, but still a bit above average. In Chicago, you should be in the lower 70s. And look at this. We're in the upper 80s Friday and Saturday to round out this week. Alex. Well, the Weather Channel and our Pattern Climate Unit are showing you how farms across the country are growing solutions to climate change. At one university in New York State, a small farm is making huge environmental impacts. We're talking about a micro farm, and it's helping students at SUNY New Paltz learn about sustainable agriculture. Joining us now is the micro farm manager, just showing you there, and it's going to be a bit of a dicey afternoon in some places. Let's talk about where we have that risk for severe storms today. Of course, the higher likelihood is where you see the darker red shading there from Glendive down through Rapid City, Scotts Bluff included in that. Here where you see the highlighting, especially along the Front Range, the main risks are going to be later this afternoon with damaging wind gusts and some large hail. But as you look toward the east, Minneapolis down through Kansas City, we also have that very isolated risk for some storms today, an isolated tornado risk, maybe some damaging winds and large hail in that area as well. So here's what's going on, where you have the clash of kind of the two different weather systems, the high pressure over the eastern portions of the U.S. and that dip in the jet stream and that low. Where you see those coming together, that's where you get the storms kind of along that lift in the jet stream on the east side of that trough, and that's where we're seeing it. It's lining up as expected. Now, the good news is that we only have minimal energy in place. Now, there is definitely enough, especially along this dry line today, to get those storms going, but we don't have crazy amounts of that instability that you might want. We've got tons of moisture in place as you look farther east. Back to the west, a little less moisture in place, but you do have the collision of those two air masses, the drier air mass to the west of the dry line and the more moist air mass to the east, so that creates an issue. We've got plenty of low-level wind helping to bring that moisture up over the Midwest, and as we head in the upper levels of the atmosphere back toward that trough or that dip in the jet stream, we've got those higher upper-level winds that are going to add to that possibility for some damaging wind gusts across portions of the Front Range into the high plains. So here's what's going on. You can kind of see our dip in the jet stream here, the general area where we're getting that lift and the storminess, the influx of all of this moisture across the plains in the Mississippi Valley, and that is where we're seeing a ton of rain across the northern tier. Bismarck, you guys are going to get in on that. Minneapolis, rain moving your way. The UP of Michigan, some showers as well. So overall, Alex, everywhere where we're under the influence of that trough, we've got that chance for rain and storms. A sunny day gives meteorologist Jen Carfagno permission to go to her Zen place near the beach. The Weather Channel partnered with Lincoln to show you how we find comfort. You've got to either swim diagonally or you've got to swim parallel to the shore and then in. You can't try to swim against the rip current. High risk of rip currents all up and down the east coast of Florida because of that strong onshore wind, and then for portions of the panhandle there as well. So here's what's going on when you have rip currents. You have the waves breaking over the sandbar because of that onshore flow. The water near the shore, it starts to rise and it creates a pressure gradient. So it's got to go somewhere, right? That's where the water starts to flow go backwards. You get your rip current. It takes it outward, forming the rip current because you have that onshore flow. You need it to go somewhere. It evacuates back out toward the deeper water. A lot of people start to panic when this happens because these rip currents can be very strong, but that's the worst thing you can do. You have to just let it carry you out, which I know could be a very hard thing when something like this that is scary is happening, but you've got to let the rip current carry you out, and then you've got to swim parallel to the shore, as I mentioned, and then in to get yourself out of that rip current. There's no way you're going to be able to swim against the rip current and get yourself back in. You're basically just going to make yourself exhausted, and then that becomes an even more dire situation. So we do have over 30,000 rescues per year in the U.S. from rip currents. It often happens in 2 to 3 feet waves, so it doesn't have to be those crazy high waves to get you there. And we have the greatest threat when the waves are moving straight in, when you have that onshore flow. So Alex says people are ramping up their summers now. We're headed toward Memorial Day weekend. Important things to know about being at the beach. That lends itself to storms in certain places and heat. A lot of heat in other places. So we've got this ridge of high pressure. You can see there that kind of bump in the jet stream. As the high pressure sits over the eastern U.S., it's sinking air. We're getting a lot of sunshine, very dry conditions underneath the ridge. Also record-breaking heat, well above average temperatures, but around the circulation of this ridge. So you can see it here, that kind of clockwise circulation around the ridge brings up that moisture out of the Gulf of Mexico, and you get the ring of fire, or the storms around the high pressure. So a totally different story if you're just kind of right under that circulation of the high pressure and that dip in the jet stream to the west. So here's where we'll see those showers and storms continuing along the plains, and we are going to have those scattered storms into next week. So we're seeing much of this pattern sticking around, but dry conditions staying for much of the southeast because of that high pressure. So it makes a big difference in terms of exactly where you're located when we have this type of setup, Alex. Exactly what you want to do. You want to hop in the water. But here's what's going on. We have high pressure that's directing this onshore flow there onto the coast, especially the east coast of Florida. Pretty gusty winds there for the panhandle as well. And all of that contributes to a high risk for rip currents. Whenever you have a strong onshore flow, it really does kind of maximize that possibility of seeing those rip currents. And that's why we have that high risk from the first coast all the way down through Miami-Dade County. And then you'll notice there around Panama City Beach, Apalachicola area, we've got that risk as you look toward the Gulf as well for those rip currents. Here's what's going on. We've got winds moving through the day today, 20, 30 mile per hour wind gusts, sometimes even higher, and then sustained winds also going to be pretty significant, and that is going to keep that risk not only for rip currents, but for those coastal areas that are very flood prone. When you have an onshore wind, you're going to have to keep that in mind as well. The winds are going to start to calm down as we head into Sunday, at least across central Florida, but for South Florida, you're going to keep that risk for rip currents there. Vero Beach today, lower 80s. Your burn time is going to be about 10 minutes. It's going to feel breezy, though. This is actually for tomorrow. Daytona Beach, plenty of sun. Again, lower 80s with that breeze. It could feel a little cool, especially if you get in the water. Now, the winds are not only creating the risk of rip currents, but also creating high fire danger. We have a red flag warning from north of Tampa down through Arcadia, down into even Flamingo. This is for these areas that are going to be experiencing lower relative humidities along with those gusty winds. That means that any fire that starts could spread really quickly for those highlighted areas, and that's through tonight. Now, one place that's been no stranger to dealing with that possibility for fires, Alex, is out west. It's been such a terrible problem that we've been talking about for so long now.
Yeah, you said it. It had been so dry in a time period where it